We spent the better part of the morning and early afternoon canvassing the close-knit community where Tanya Jackson had lived. It was a working-class military neighborhood, and at more than half the stops, nobody was home. I was on the front porch of a brick and clapboard house, talking to a woman in her late 30s or early 40s, when I saw Sampson come jogging our way. Something was up. "Alex, come with me," he called out. "Come on, I need you right now." Chapter 13. I caught up with Sampson. "What's up? What did you find out?" "Something weird. Maybe a break," he said. I followed him to another small ranch house. He knocked on the door, and a woman appeared almost immediately. She was only a little over 5 feet, but easily weighed 200 pounds, maybe 250. "This is my partner, Detective Cross. I told you about him. This is Mrs. Hodge," he said. "I'm Anita Hodge," the woman said as she shook my hand. "Glad to meet you." She looked at Sampson and grinned. "I agree. Ali when he was younger." Mrs. Hodge walked us through a family room where 2 young boys were watching Nickelodeon and playing video games at the same time. She then led us down a narrow hallway and into a bedroom. A boy of about 10 was in the room. He was seated in a wheelchair that was pulled up to a gateway computer. Behind him on the wall were glossy pictures of more than 24 Major League Baseball players. He looked annoyed at the intrusion. "What now?" he asked. "That's short for get out of here and leave me alone. I'm working." "This is Ronald Hodge," Sampson said. "Ronald, this is Detective Cross. I told you about him when we spoke before." The boy nodded but didn't say anything, just stared angrily my way. "Ronald, will you tell us your story again?" Sampson asked. "We need to hear it." The boy rolled his eyes. "I already told the other policeman. I'm sick and tired of it, you know? Nobody cares what I think anyway." "Ronald," said his mother, "that's not true and you know it." "Please tell me," I said to the boy. "What you have to say could be important. I want to hear it in your words." The boy frowned and continued to shake his head, but his eyes held mine. "The other policeman didn't think it was important. Fuckheads." "Ronald," said the boy's mother, "don't be rude. You know I don't like that attitude or that kind of language." Okay, he said. "I'll tell it again." Then he began to talk about the night Tanya Jackson was murdered and what he'd seen. "I was up late. Wasn't supposed to be. I was playing on the computer." He stopped and looked at his mother. She nodded. "You're forgiven. We've been over this before. Now please tell your story. You're starting to get me a little crazy." The boy finally cracked a smile, then went on with his story. Maybe he had just wanted to set up his audience a little. "I can see the Jacksons' yard from my room. It's just past the corner of the Hart's house. I saw somebody out in the yard. It was kind of dark, but I could see him moving. He had like a movie camera or something. I couldn't tell what he was taking pictures of, so it made me curious. I went up close to this window to watch, and then I saw that there were 3 men out there. I saw them in Mrs. Jackson's yard. That's what I told the police. 3 men. I saw them just like I see 2 of you in my room. And they were making a movie." Chapter 14. I asked young Ronald Hodge to repeat his story, and he did. Exactly. Almost word for word. He stared me right in the eye as he spoke, and he didn't hesitate or waver. It was obvious that the boy was troubled by what he had witnessed, and that he was still scared. He'd been living in fear of what he'd seen that night, and then learning that murders had been committed in the house next door. Afterward, Sampson and I talked to Anita Hodge in the kitchen. She gave us iced tea, which was unsweetened, and had big chunks of lemon in it, and was delicious. She told us that Ronald had been born with spina bifida, an outcropping of the spinal cord that had caused paralysis from the waist down. "Mrs. Hodge," I asked, "what do you think about the story Ronald told us in there?" "Oh, I believe him. At least I believe he thinks he saw what he did. Maybe it was shadows or something, but Ronald definitely believes he saw 3 men, and one of them with a movie camera of some kind. He's been consistent on that from the first. Spooky." Like that old Hitchcock movie. Rear window, I said. James Stewart thinks he sees a murder outside his window. He's laid up with a broken leg at the time. I looked over at Sampson. I wanted to make sure he was comfortable with me asking the questions this time. He nodded that it was okay. What happened after the Fayetteville detectives talked to Ronald? Did they come back? Did any other policemen come? Anyone from Fort Bragg? Mrs. Hodge, why wasn't Ronald's testimony part of the trial? She shook her head. Same questions I had. My ex-husband and me both. A captain from CID did come a few days later. Captain Jacobs? He talked to Ronald some. That was the end of it, though. No one ever came about any trial. After we finished our iced tea, we decided to call it a day. It was past 5, and we thought we'd made some progress. I called Nana and the kids back at the Holiday Inn, Bordeaux. Everything was fine and dandy on the home front. They had taken up the cry that I was on Daddy's last case. They liked the sound of that. Maybe I did, too. Sampson and I had dinner and a couple of beers at Bowties inside the hotel, then turned in for the night. I tried Jamila in California. It was about 7 her time, so I called her work number first. Inspector Hughes, she answered curtly. Homicide. I want to report a missing person, I said. Hey, Alex, she said. I could feel her smile over the phone. You called me at work again. Busted. You're the missing person. Where are you? You don't write, you don't call, not even a crummy email in the past few days. I apologized. Then I told Jam about Sergeant Cooper and what had happened so far. I described what Ronald Hodge had seen from his bedroom window. Then I broached the subject that had prompted my call. I miss you, Jam. I'd like to see you, I said. Any place, any time. Why don't you come east for a change? Or I could go out there if you'd rather. You tell me. Jamila hesitated, and I found that I was holding my breath. Maybe she didn't want to see me. Then she said, I can get off work for a few days. I'd love to see you. Sure. I'll come to Washington. I haven't been there since I was a kid. Not so long ago, I said. That's good. Cute, she said with a laugh. My heart fluttered a little as the two of us made a date. Sure. I'll come to Washington. I played that line of Jamila's over and over in my head for the rest of the night. It had just rolled off her tongue, almost as though she couldn't wait to say it. Chapter 15. Early the next morning, I got a call from a friend of mine at the FBI. I had asked Abby DeGarbo to check on rental car companies in the area for any irregularities that took place during the week of the murders. I told her it was urgent. Abby had already found one. It seemed that Hertz had been stiffed on the rental of a Ford Explorer. The bill never paid. Abby had dug deeper and discovered an interesting paper trail. She told me that scamming a rental car company wasn't all that easy, which was good news for us. The scam had required a fake credit card and a driver's license on which everything matched, including the description of the driver renting the car. Someone had hacked into public record SEC files to obtain the fake identity used on the card, and the information was submitted to a company in Brampton, Ontario, where the fake card was made. A fake driver's license to match was then obtained from a website, photoidcards.com. A photograph had also been submitted, and I was staring at a copy of it right now. White, male, nothing memorable about the face, which possibly had been changed with makeup and costume props anyway. The FBI was still checking to see what else they could find. It was a start, though. Somebody had gone to some trouble to rent a car in Fayetteville without using their real ID. We had somebody's picture, thanks to Abby DeGarbo. I told Sampson about the rent-a-car scam on the way over to Sergeant Cooper's house. Sampson was drinking steaming hot coffee and eating an eclair from Dunkin' Donuts, but I could tell he was appreciative in his own way. That's why I asked you in on this, he said. Cooper lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Spring Lake, north of Fort Bragg. He had one side of a red brick duplex. I saw a sign. Caution, attack cat. He has a sense of humor, Sampson said. At least he did. We had been given a key to open the front door. Sampson and I stepped inside. The house still smelled like cat after all this time. "It's good not having anybody in the way for a change," I said to John. "No other police, no FBI. Killer's been caught," Sampson said. "Case is closed. Nobody cares but us now. And Cooper's sitting there on death row. The clock's ticking." Apparently nobody had figured out what to do about the apartment yet. Ellis Cooper had felt secure enough in his posting that he'd bought the place a few years back. When he retired, he'd planned to live in Spring Lake. The table in the front hallway contained photos of Cooper posing with friends in several locations. What looked like Hawaii, the south of France, maybe the Caribbean. There was also a more recent photo of Cooper hugging a woman who was probably his girlfriend, Marcia. The furniture in the apartment was comfortable looking, not expensive, and appeared to have been bought at stores like Target and Pier 1. Sampson called me over to one of the windows. "It's been jimmied. The place was broken into. Could be how somebody got Cooper's knife, then returned it. If that's what happened. Coop said he left it in the closet of his bedroom. The police say the knife was in the attic." We went into the bedroom next. The walls were covered with more photographs, mostly from places where Cooper had been posted. Vietnam, Panama, Bosnia. A Yukon mighty weightlifting bench was lined up near one wall. Near the closet was an ironing board. We searched through the closet. The clothes were mostly military, but there were civilian threads, too. "What do you make of this stuff?" I asked Sampson. I pointed to a table with a grouping of odd knickknacks that looked as though they came from Southeast Asia. I picked up a straw doll that looked strangely menacing, even evil. Then a small crossbow with what looked like a claw for its trigger. A silver amulet in the shape of a watchful, lidless eye. What was this? Sampson took a careful look at the creepy straw doll, then the eye. "I've seen the evil eye before. Maybe in Cambodia or Saigon. Don't remember exactly. I've seen the straw dolls, too. Think they have something to do with avenging evil spirits. I've seen the dolls at Viet funerals." The creepy artifacts notwithstanding, the sense I got from the apartment was that Ellis Cooper had been a lonely man without much of a life besides the Army. I didn't see a single photograph of what might be called family. We were still in Cooper's bedroom when we heard a door open inside the apartment. Then came the sound of heavy shoes approaching. The bedroom door was thrown open and banged hard against the wall. Soldiers with drawn pistols stood in the doorway. "Put your hands up! Military police, hands up now!" one of them yelled. Sampson and I slowly raised our arms. "We're homicide detectives. We have permission to be here," Sampson told them. "Check with Captain Jacobs at CID." "Just keep those hands up high," the MP in charge barked. Sampson spoke calmly to the leader of the 3 MPs, who now crowded into the bedroom with their guns leveled at us. "I'm a friend of Sergeant Cooper's," Sampson told them. "He's a convicted murderer," snarled one MP out of the side of his mouth. "Lives on death row these days, but not for much longer." Sampson kept his hands high, but told them there was a note from Cooper in his shirt pocket and the house key we'd been given. The head MP took the note and read, "To whom it may concern, John Sampson is a friend, and the only person I know who's working on my behalf. He and Detective Cross are welcome in my house, but the rest of you bastards aren't. Get the hell out. You're trespassing. Sergeant Ellis Cooper." Chapter 16. I woke up the next morning with the phrase "dead man walking" repeating itself in my head. I couldn't get back to sleep. I kept seeing Ellis Cooper in the bright orange jumpsuit that death row prisoners wore at Central Prison. Early in the morning, before it got too hot, Sampson and I took a run around Bragg. We entered the base on Bragg Boulevard, then turned onto a narrower street called Honeycutt. Then came a maze of similar side streets, and finally Longstreet Road. Bragg was immaculate. Not a speck of trash anywhere. A lot of soldiers were already up, running PT. As we jogged side by side, we planned out our day. We had a lot to do in a relatively short time. Then we needed to get back to Washington.